So it seems like we have a good level of participation this accessibility update. So welcome everyone, and happy to see you joining us for this little research update and policy update. We do provide international sign today, and we also have English live captions presented as closed captions, so just choose the CC functionality in Zoom. We also provide automatic translations of the captions into Swedish. So for anyone who would like to read the captions in Swedish, we are providing, or my colleague Eva is providing, a link to the Swedish translation in the chat function here. We are going to present a little bit about what the Funka Research and Innovation Department is doing, just to present us to any newcomers to this series. And then we are going to present a couple of ongoing projects and results. And of course, also hear from the European Disability Forum on their most important policy updates today. So if you would like to ask anything to any of the speakers, then please use the Q&A function. And if you have any technical issues, then please use the chat function, and my colleague Eva will monitor the chat if anything is happening with the captions or interpretation spotlighting, so that we can fix that for you. And I'll try to. So my name is Susanna Lorin. I'm the Chief Research and Innovation Officer at Funka, and this accessibility update is a recurring event that we do together with EDF, targeting end users and disabled persons organizations, but of course open to anyone who is interested in what we are doing. We have a packed agenda today, as usual. We do a little bit of an introduction first, of course, and housekeeping, and then we have a demonstration of a research project that is just ending in a couple of days. Actually, Monday is the last project day, called Buddy. We have an update on one of the studies we are doing for the European Commission, and this time is the review of the Web Accessibility Directive. That is not finalized yet, but we do have some interesting statistics and information that we would like to share with you already now, and then the full report will be published later on in the spring. We will of course have a short coffee break to stretch our legs or do something else for a while, so that we are fresh when we then return, and we can tell you about a new project that we have just recently been awarded, that is called UPower. A very exciting project, I think. And then we have the policy update from EDF, and this is run by my dear friend Alejandro Moledo, who is the policy officer of the European Disability Forum, and I'm sure you all know him. And then we will just do a short wrap up, and at that time we hopefully it's 2:30 at that time. No, sorry, it's 3 o'clock. We are starting 1:30. That's confusing to me, but we have 1.5 hours for this, so 3 o'clock we're supposed to end. And of course, after each of these presentations, it's you are welcome to ask questions all the time, but we will take the questions after each section of the agenda. So after each presentation, we will look in the Q&A function to see if there are any comments or so. And I also, apart from Alejandro from EDF, I will also be joined by some colleagues of mine from the Research and Innovation department of Funka, and also a colleague from the European Blind Union, who will join us a little later and present himself. So let's start with a short presentation of who we are. We are a consultancy in web accessibility, or accessibility in a broader sense, but usually doing most of the work in the digital environment. We started in the 90s when the disability organizations in Sweden got together and founded an organization that was in the beginning an NGO, but since the year 2000 we are a privately owned company providing consultancy in accessibility. We do analysis, testing, of course, training and support when it comes to accessibility. And we also have a a separate department doing research, and I think that is the key to our success, that we can always have time and do an effort in learning new things and not only kind of repeating old stuff, but we can also make sure that we are in the forefront of accessibility evolution, so to speak. We do have quite a lot of collaboration with individual end users and also disabled persons organizations. That's obviously very natural for us when we were started by the organizations, but we also find that this is where we find the most knowledge and expertise, and we really enjoy doing the work very hands-on. So this collaboration is important to us, and that's also why we provide these updates, so that the organizations and the community knows what we are doing. We are also quite active in standardization. We do quite a lot of work in policy and studies, mostly for the European Commission, but also for national governments in the EU and also in North America. And right now we're also focusing quite a lot on regulations, because there are, as you know, directives and laws at the EU level that is kind of changing the market for all of us. We're also one of the proud founders of the International Association of Accessibility Professionals, a global organization aiming to pull together experts in accessibility and make sure that we have certification and a broad knowledge about the topic in the profession. So why are we doing research? Well, not only because it's so interesting for us, but also because it's deeply needed. We sometimes create our own ideas, something we have stumbled on, a problem we see, a barrier we see that we think that we need more research on, so we can initiate projects from our own experiences. And very often someone else comes with an idea to us, and not least the disabled persons organizations come to us with ideas and things that this is something we can't solve on our own. We need to do it together. So if you have anything you would like to share with us, or something you feel that you need a little bit more resources to investigate or develop further, then please do reach out, because we are very happy to collaborate, and we often get ideas from other partners, but not only disabled persons organizations, but also universities and public sector agencies and privately owned companies come to us with ideas, and we hope to do collaboration with all sectors, of course. And then there's a third way that projects can be born, which is, of course, a specific call when the European Commission or another funding instrument has something they would like to investigate further, and we just respond to a specific research call. So when we move into a project, we are often invited to projects, to collaborate in projects, and then we have some specific criteria for picking the ones that we find most interesting. And we want the projects to solve a real problem, so it shouldn't be very theoretical, it should be kind of hands-on and practical. We of course think it's very important that we have serious partners in the project. We want to have long collaborations and relations, so we want to pick the partners that we really enjoy working with. And then it's important for us that we in Funka can be part of the solution to this barrier or problem, so that we don't just kind of write proposals on somebody else's behalf and get paid for it. That's not how we work. We want to be part of the project and part of the solution before we get into this and invest our time and effort into the projects and proposals. We also try to pick projects that we think has a potential to be funded. And with our experience in this since 20 years, I think we can do at least a little bit of selection process here, so that we don't invest too much time and effort in things that don't get the funding in the end. And then the last kind of criteria we pick from is that we want the result of the project to actually contribute to a better world for people with disabilities. And that may sound kind of like a cliche, but it's actually what we try to really make sure that we keep that in mind all the time. We don't want the projects to be just blah blah blah. We want them to be real. We also pride ourselves with having a very user-centric approach. So we do in all our projects, we try to do user testing We work with focus groups when that is more relevant. We do interviews, of course, and we also have a test panel. So if you're interested in doing user testing with us in one of the projects, then please reach out. We try to collect as many as possible in our network for doing tests. And we do believe that working together in this way with different competencies and experts being users or experts being technical or design experts, that we together we can really make a change and make things better, and also learn from each other, of course. So that's kind of the background for this, the work we do, apart from all the consultancy and kind of commercial work that we also do. But in research, we have this opportunity to really be on a nerd level and solve things, which we really enjoy doing. So a couple of examples. Buddy, we have already presented Buddy during the project, so I don't want to use a lot of time on explaining the Buddy project for you, because I think many of you have heard about it before, but now we are approaching the end. We would like to demonstrate how it actually looks. So what was the result? What did this end up with? And just shortly, the background for people with, well, for anyone who needs assistive technology, I think, but maybe especially for people with cognitive impairments. You know, of course, what is difficult or what you need support with, but you may not always know what's out there. You don't know exactly what kind of solution that I need. I mean, if I have a problem with reading, then what kind of reading support do I need, or what are the best tools for me that suits my specific needs? That's not really easy to know if you're sitting at home during the pandemic, at least, or even if you ask others. It's kind of hard to define sometimes exactly what I do need. And even if I know what I need, or if I can kind of imagine a tool that could support me, then I need to understand how to find it. So is it something I can Google? Is it something I need to ask the government for, or can I buy it myself, or can I download it? How does it work? Where do I find it? And then, of course, the whole system of assistive technology provision is kind of difficult, or complex, at least in many countries. So how to actually get the tool can be very difficult. Many countries have systems where you don't need to pay yourself, but then the whole process of getting kind of approved to get the technology can be a hassle in itself, even if it doesn't require you to pay for it. If you do have to pay for it yourself, then of course it adds on another layer of problems, because then we are not very inclusive in society if people who need assistive technology need to have the money to pay for it. So, and then if and when you do get your assistive technology, then there is also a big gap in many countries where you have a problem to get support, training and support. So you get the tool once, but then you need to update your operational system or your browser or something, and then everything breaks, and where to turn to, how do I get support so that I can maintain this assistive technology and the whole ecosystem of tools that I have to work with. So loads of problems here. And there's also a problem from the other side, or challenge with the assistive technology companies. They sometimes say that it's hard to get very close to the users, because they are usually not selling directly to the users, but more to the government or some kind of organization that are then providing the tools. So there is a step in between the developers and designers and the actual end users. So having kind of bridging that gap would be, I think, beneficial for the improvement of this whole system. So what we tried to do in the Buddy project was to solve this or bridge the gap in one way or another. And we have done this project together with the Johannes Kepler University of Austria in a quite short project, only a year long, funded by the European Commission. And you can find more information about the project at the project website, which is buddyproject in one word.eu. And I want to show you a small video showing the end user perspective of this, just to see a little bit of why we did this. So this is the Buddy project website, and take this one.
Buddy, supporting users, an EU-funded project carried out by Funka and the Johannes Kepler University. This is a short interview with Philip.
Jag heter Filip, jag har ADHD, Asperger, autism.
My name is Philip, and I have ADHD, Asperger's, and autism. I use my phone mostly to chat, use Google, and read my email. I use the computer almost exclusively to study. For example, writing a master's thesis and things like that. I also watch streamed content. Do you encounter any difficulties on the web? Especially with my calendar. I have downloaded a very good calendar that is visually very good and clear, but if I were to set an alarm on everything that I need the alarm for, the mobile wouldn't do anything else but alert me, and that doesn't work for me. I would be very stressed, and I'm sensitive to stress. I often therefore forget things such as, oh, I should have washed my clothes last week, and when I remember, I have to change it to the following week. I often think, I should have done this. I should have bought that. I need to push things forward all the time. Finally, I procrastinate. I don't have the energy and I think, I'll fix it later. So it's a problem. It's energy demanding. Do you use any assistive technology? At the moment, I don't use any assistive technology. I stopped looking for it long ago because often it was only the trial version available or there was a cost right from the very beginning. It didn't feel good. So right now, I don't know if there are any good assistive technologies on the web to download. What do you think about the Buddy project? I think the Buddy project is a very good initiative. I would like to try it. I would give it a try. www.buddyproject.eu. Buddy.
So that recorded interview is just one of the examples of how end users encounter trouble or challenges with assistive technology, or their need for assistive technology, just as a background for this. So the Buddy project really aims to bridge the gap, and we are doing that by providing a platform or a database, you could say, a website where we have collected tools for cognitive accessibility in one place. So you don't need to look for them everywhere. We have tried to collect them in one place. And then we have made it easier to search the right tools and to try them out, so that you don't need to decide things before you have really tried them. So having everything in one place and making it easier to pick the right one, I think is a good starting point for this, making it really easy to select. And not only do we try to match the needs of the user, we are also trying to make it much easier to define those needs, because it's sometimes very hard to explain exactly what my challenges are or the barriers and how I want to solve them. So the thing here with Buddy is that we are using artificial intelligence and machine learning to actually make the system learn from the user instead of the other way around. So the user can pick and choose needs and tools and things. If you want to do that independently, absolutely, you are empowered to. But if you are a little bit insecure or don't know really exactly how to express your needs, then the system tries to support you and actually learn from your user behavior. So that is some very exciting research done in this project. And now I will ask my colleague Lisa to do the demo of how this looks in reality. And she's very brave, so she's going to do a live demo.
Thank you, Susanna. And hello, everyone. My name is Lisa, and I work as a UX designer, UX researcher at Funka's Research and Innovation Department.
And you need to start your, yes, here comes your video.
Yes, here it is. Hello, everyone. Yes, so I'm going to try to do a live demo here today. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen here. So now I hope that you can see it, and I will start with the start page here. So let's see. Yeah, so I will try to do a live demo, and as you know, when you're doing something live, anything can happen. This platform has support for different languages. And as I'm in Sweden right now, it senses this, and originally it took me to the Swedish version of this website. But I want to do this demo in English, so I changed the language setting to English. But I'm gonna switch between different windows here, so I don't know if the platform will get confused and maybe jump back to Swedish. If that happens, you know the reason why. This platform is accessible and fully compliant with the requirements, but to make sure that users with cognitive disabilities gets the extra support that they might need, we have also implemented the easy reading tool on the platform. And that is what you can see with the icon here. And the easy reading tool, it offers reading support, so it can read the text out loud for you, and it can also adjust the size of the text and the spacing of the text. So you can use it throughout the platform if you wish to, but I'm going to show this demo in the original layout. For Buddy to be able to recommend a tool for you, you first have to create an account on the platform. And you can do this in 3 different ways. You can choose to register with Facebook, or with Google, or with email, whatever suits you best. I already have an account on the platform, so now I'm going to switch to the other window where I'm already logged into the system. So when I have created an account and entered the platform for the first time, I get a chance to tell Buddy what kind of support that I'm looking for. We have tried to make this as easy and fun as possible. So instead of going through a process of setting different settings, adjusting them, the different settings, you can do it in 2 different ways. You can either answer questions about your preferences and your needs, or you can choose to play some games. And then, depending on the result, Buddy can calculate what kind of tool would be suitable for me. All of the tools that are in the Buddy system is categorized within 9 support categories. And the support categories covers everything from calculation, reading, writing, to time management and memory support. And both of these options, the answering questions and playing games, are based upon these support categories. I don't have the opportunity to show you all the games here today, but I thought I should show you a little bit of one of the first games. And this game is focused on memory and focus. So I'm going to try to remember and to keep track of a coin that is hidden under a cup. So I'm going to start the game now, as you can see how it looks.
Find the coin after the cup stopped moving.
Oh, where did it go? I think it was here. Oh, that was wrong. That's okay. I get another chance to try again. And the games continue, but I'm going to stop there to show you the other option. So now I have another tab open here where I have started to answer the questions. So I'm in the middle of the process here, as you can see in this progress bar. So here the questions also are based upon the support categories. So here it's memory support. So I get a question, do I need support for memory? And then I can choose yes, no, or it depends. I think I will choose yes. And I continue. The next is time management support. Do I find it difficult to manage my time? sometimes? Yes, this happens also. I continue. Choice management. Do I find it sometimes difficult to make choices on everyday things? That depends. Now I've gone through all the whole process and I can click the finish. Now I can see that my preferences has been updated. So now Buddy can recommend the tool for me. So I proceed to the tools page. On the tools page, I can see the recommendations for tools that Buddy thinks would work for me. For each tool, I can see the name of the tool and a short description. I can also see what kind of support the tool offers. For this tool, it's reading, writing, and understanding. I can also see what kind of operating system is available for this tool. And here it is Chrome and Edge. I can see the supported languages and also if there is a cost for this tool. If I find a tool that I like, I can either add it to my favorites to look at later, or I can go straight away to get this tool. And then I go to how to get this tool, this button. And then I go to a page where I will get the links to the external websites where I can get the tool. But I've also had the possibility not only to see my recommendation, but also all the tools that are in the system. Then I just switch to the all tools. So now I get a list of all the tools that are in the system that are supported by my language. So I can find it here. If I go to the page favorites, I get a list of all the tools that I've added here. And here I get a chance also to read the different tools. Did I like this Orbi writer? Yes, I liked it a lot. Then I can rate it a 5. And based on these ratings, Buddy can then in the future give me even better recommendations. So all in all, this Buddy platform has a collection of tools that can make it more easily for you to find the digital support that you are looking for. So that was my demo. Thank you so much. I'm gonna stop my screen sharing.
Thank you, Lisa. So I'm impressed because nothing happened that shouldn't happen. So a live demo that worked out without any glitches. That's impressive. So do we have any questions on the Buddy tool or the project as such? It is ending on Monday formally, and then we hope, of course, this is kind of a proof of concept. So we hope to get a lot of interest from the industry or other organizations that would like to maintain the tool after the project end, of course. And we also have a session on next Friday with the assistive technology tool providers and industry with a couple of 100 registered already. So there's a big interest for this. So we really hope that this platform will become live and something that could be useful for many end users. So I don't see any questions yet. Thank you, Lisa. So I think we could move on to the next part, which is the review of the Web Accessibility Directive. We have also talked about this before, as we were asking you to support us with the open consultation during the summer. So thank you everyone who has contributed to this. And now we have a raised hand. Eva, can we open the microphone maybe, or if you would.
Yes, Alexandra, you are welcome to speak.
Hi, good evening. I have a question about the website of the Buddy project.
Yes.
Is it available also for example islands in the Caribbean? Because I am from Aruba, and here we have we don't have a lot of support to see which assistive technology or digital, to assist any kind of impairment. So we are like trial and error here. So I found this very interesting that I as a blind person can help others to get how can I tell the most the best alternative for assistive technology or tools to use the internet. So is it available for the Caribbean islands?
But the website is publicly available for anyone. So far, we have the database is still in a development server. So, but when the project has been approved by the Commission, it will be, of course, open to everyone, and we will publish what Lisa was showing.
Okay. Yes.
After the formal approval of the Commission. So, and then it will be up and open to anyone anywhere. So I'm happy that we have also people listening in from Aruba. That was impressive. That's far away. So.
Yes, far away. 5 hours. I'm like 9 in the morning here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no, thank you for answering that question. I hope to get this opportunity to share it with others in Aruba and Curacao and Bonaire.
Yeah, and if you like it, please invite us to Aruba because we need your sunshine. So whenever we get
Yes.
the possibility to travel again, I would love to come visit you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And we have another question here. Will the Commission be funding translating the application to various EU languages as well? Is this a possibility to hope for? Jakob is asking. I don't think so, not at the moment, because this is a research project, and as such we have promised in the contract, so to speak, in the grant agreement, we are doing the platform in English, in German, and in Swedish, because English is the kind of EU language, and we have Austrian and Swedish partners, so that's why we cover those 3 languages. But if, and which we hope, of course, that either potentially some governments, but I think service providers, organizations, or assistive technology industry providers would be willing to take over the responsibility for the platform after the project end. This is what we are working for and hoping for, because then it will be sustainable. Then it will be up to that organization to make sure that it covers at least all the EU languages. And I don't see any reason why it should stay only in the EU, but it could be a global system for anyone. So I think there is a need for either official funding to maintain the system, and then also translations, and or a business model where the assistive technology industry finds this so important and beneficial to them that they actually are willing to pay a little bit to be to have their tools published in the platform. And then if someone could make that kind of business model work, then there would be money to do the translations as well. So, but in the project, it's only in 3 languages. So, but thank you for the question. So, how many tools are listed in total? I think we have, I don't know, Lisa, if you remember correctly, but we had a little less than 100, I think 87, 89, something in that, around that number so far. And that's certainly not all, but these are the ones that we have been able to find by the research and interviews and the collaborations we have had with Austrian and German speaking tool providers and the Swedish kind of market players. And then of course, the ones that we have found internationally, but I'm sure there are many more. But the goal of the project has not been to cover every corner of the world as of yet, but it's more of the proof of concept of the machine learning and AI and recommendation and rating and things. That's more what the specific research has been focusing on. And again, when this is kind of taken out to the market and keeps living, which I hope it will, then of course the responsibility for that owner will be to also make sure that we cover all tools out there. So thank you. Good questions as usual. But the review of the Web Accessibility Directive is an ongoing process. It's interesting because the Web Accessibility Directive monitoring has just ended, and each member state are monitoring the results and enforcement of the directive in the member states, and they have reported back to the Commission only by the end of December. But already in April last year, we started working with this review. So before the whole kind of process of the enforcement and application of the regulation, the directive is there, the review is already starting. And that makes me happy because I know it's written in the directive, but it means that we have a chance to improve the outcomes of the directive already very early on, and not after we have kind of tried for many years. So there is a chance really to make sure that the directive becomes even more efficient quite soon, I hope. So this is a very interesting study that we are doing on behalf of the Commission, together with an Italian company called Intellera and a Spanish company called Open Evidence, who are the kind of data crunchers here when we do the accessibility parts. So the tasks of this assignment for the Commission is to do a lot of consultations with all stakeholders, of course, and as a part of that, we have done this open public consultation that I mentioned, and then we're doing targeted surveys specifically for end users, for disabled persons organizations, for public sector bodies, for monitoring agencies, for the technology industry, and policymakers. And there's a long list of interesting stakeholders that needs to bring their view on the directive to make sure that we get kind of all perspectives covered here. And right now we are doing in-depth interviews with the monitoring agencies. Very interesting, I can tell you. And we learn a lot from this. And of course, it's interesting to see what is happening in different corners of Europe and so, and how they are interpreting the rules. That is also interesting. So all of this will be presented in the final report published in the early summer, I think, beginning of the summer. So we have done a lot of analysis on the monitoring reports. Thousands of pages, but very, very interesting to see, of course, how the results of the directive is interpreted in different countries. And many of these monitoring reports are actually public, so they are publicly available, and the Commission are also listing them, but you can also find them in the local languages by each member state. In this review, we are also monitoring the technical advances. So we are doing desk research and also interviews and so on to make sure that we understand what has happened in the technology development from the time the directive was decided upon, and then it takes many years until it's now applied and kind of running. So what has happened from the technology side and what could potentially be now added or broadened when it comes to the scope, for example, of the directive. Some things are exempt from the directive, and we want to know if that is something that could be added based on what has happened from the technological side. So we also do validation interviews with large technological players in the market to make sure that we kind of catch everything that is going on, not only what is already in the market and commercially available, but also research and innovation that is going on in the different areas of technology. And then the last piece of the assignment is that we are going to look at the baseline indicators that were created before the directive entered into force, and to update them and see if they are still relevant, or if there's another way that this should be measured and monitored in the future. And we wanted to share with you some of the results of the open public consultation that is already kind of public. So my colleague John will tell you a little bit of the results from the consultation that we can share with you already.
Thanks, Susanna, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Switters, and I'm a European project manager in Funka's Research and Innovation Department. And as Susanna mentioned, it's my job today just to share with you some of the takeaways from the open public consultation. So let's just look at the kind of the overall picture. In total, we had 966 answers to the open public consultation, which was way above the expected 200 that the European Commission had already originally requested. So there's no doubt that accessibility is an important topic to many people. 442 of the respondents claim not to have a disability, whatever that means, because we all have varying abilities, of course, and 354 either consider themselves to be a person with disabilities or to have a recognized disability. 95% of the respondents are service providers or caregivers, either responding on behalf of a person with disabilities or from their own professional perspective. And then 39 stated that they prefer not to say, and 36 describe themselves as others. So as we can see, quite a good spread as when we are carrying out this type of initiatives, we need the perspective of as many stakeholders as possible.
John, sorry, I think you said 95%, but it was 95 respondents that were caregivers.
Sorry, apologies for that. That was 95, respondents, not 95%. Thanks, Susanna. And I think if we move on to look now, so open public consultations are generally very long, bureaucratic, and quite cumbersome. And they do require the user to log in via the sometimes complicated and not very accessible EU login system. So therefore, during this assignment, we argued strongly for an easy to read version of the open public consultation. And this was the first time ever that an easy to read survey has been used as part of an open public consultation. So we're very proud of this achievement. And as more than twice as many answered the easy to read version, the European Commission has learned a lot from this as well. So out of the total number of responses, 656 were received through the easy to read survey, and 310 were received through the main survey, the open public consultation. So hopefully we have started a tradition with this for future open public consultations.
And it's also sorry, John, but I think the point here is that the easy to read version was not only easy to read, but it also did not require the login. So it was much easier to reach the survey. So that's also an important point, I think.
Yes, most definitely. So if we look at user involvement now, so 42% of people with disabilities claimed that they were involved in the implementation of the directive in their country, with the majority, that's 58%, stating that they weren't involved. So those people with disabilities that were actually involved stated that their involvement was on behalf of disabled persons organisations. And I think it's very important here to note that we're actually talking about the transposition of the directive here. However, we should also know that user involvement does not stop at this level, at the level of transposition. It also forms a major part of the monitoring of the directive. Now, whilst there wasn't a question on this in the open public consultation, as Susanna's already mentioned, information has been gathered from the reports from the monitoring bodies of the different member states. So this is currently being analysed, and more information on this will be published in the final report. So if we now look at the feedback mechanism, so as already shown by the study carried out by EDF, our research shows that persons with disabilities aren't aware of the feedback mechanism. However, in the open public consultation, 63% of users claim to be aware of it, with only 23% stating that they were not aware about the mechanism. 15% did not provide an answer. So there's a bit of discrepancy here. We believe that it's based mainly on the fact that the open public consultation responses come from people with persons with disabilities who are very engaged in policy making, etc. So it may not reflect the actual reality that's out there. Regarding the use of the feedback mechanism, 34% of people with persons with disabilities stated that they had used it, whilst the majority, 63%, said that they hadn't. Now, the feedback mechanism is one of the main pillars of the Web Accessibility Directive, so it would be a real shame if end users didn't use it. So after the break, in the continuation of our session today, we will be presenting a project that aims to solve this issue. So finally, when asked about the main accessibility barriers, most respondents claim that navigation is the problem, and that represents about 30% of the responses. In second place, we have forms that also cause problems, and that was mentioned in 16% of the answers that we received. And then almost 10% said that all of the potential causes were causing them problems. So all of the potential issues that were highlighted in the survey were causing them problems. Now, the rest of the answers were quite evenly divided between things such as tables, problems with video content, problems with image content. And I think there's no major surprise here that navigation and forms were top of the list, because they're complex issues that affect many user groups. I think also want to mention that 6% of the responses claim to have absolutely no accessibility issues at all. However, of the 6%, the majority of these people recognize themselves as without a disability. So that we need to take that into account as well. So I hope I've managed to give you an overview of the key takeaways that we see, and I will hand back to Susanna.
Thank you, John. And of course, there are loads of other numbers that we could have shown, and there will be a lot of more information when this becomes public. But I think these are kind of the key takeaways from the end user part of the open public consultations. So thank you for highlighting this, John. So just to wrap up, the next steps of the assignment is really, well, continuing with the interviews, and then we'll do an analysis of all these stakeholder consultation, the results of all the material that we have gathered. And we will provide not only a report on the kind of status of this, but also some recommendations for potential improvement or well, improvements. I guess that is what we will recommend them to do improvements of the directive. So the report will be public, of course, and there will also be an event. I know that the European Commission is planning an event, and it will be either the last, well, as far as I know, the end of June or beginning of July, somewhere there around there, there will be an event where the results of this will be presented. So stay tuned for all of that. And I wanted to also give, I wanted to give Alejandro the opportunity to say something from EDF's point of view. You have provided loads of input to the review, so thank you for that. And I know you also have a very extended policy paper on this, but if you wanted to chime in on something, some important pieces of this, you're welcome to comment, please.
Thank you, Susanna. Can you hear me well, no?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Good. No, I'm very glad to see that many of the aspects that we highlighted and our members highlight every time we discuss about this directive are reflecting in the data that you've been gathering in the public consultation. Firstly, we are also very glad that the Commission allowed for this easy to read and easy to use consultation process, which in the end was proven to be the most successful. So we expect this to be also a tradition, to become a tradition. And because as you said, one of the main issues for many people with disabilities is to log in into the tool. So we hope that the Web Accessibility Action Plan that the Commission is supposed to present anytime in the coming days or weeks will actually tackle this issue and will take this example as a best practice. So as I was saying, some of the aspects that you highlighted, the navigation, forms, and also our members have been raising the issue of third-party content as well that is being used in certain public sector bodies' website for identification, for example, is not accessible. So we hope that this evaluation of the Web Directive will lead to, potential revision of the directive in which we can really widen the scope, so we can include, for example, authoring tools. So the web editors of the website will have an accessible authoring tool to create by default accessible content, and also the software that the public sector uses, because we have also many cases of people with disabilities who are public servants and unfortunately cannot use or cannot work in the website because the software they use, or in other tasks because the software they use is not accessible. So there are these issues, and obviously the use and the misinterpretation of certain exemptions in the regulation concerning disproportionate burden and other exceptions in the law. Well, we can go on and on with all the little things that obviously in a legislative process could have been better, but we hope that with the data that you are gathering and the evaluation, the final evaluation, will have a strong basis to claim that some improvements will need to be made in the law, so member states can implement it more easily, and it really has an impact on people's life. It's a pity that, for example, the issue of the feedback mechanism and the accessibility statement that all public websites need to include is not really taking as an opportunity to reach out to users in a more understandable manner, and that users can really see the benefits of having this accessibility statement as a easy to understand information about the accessibility of the website, being able to easily contact the website to request an alternative for inaccessible content, and they receive a positive reply. So all these aspects, obviously, we expect that they will evolve and they will improve in the coming years, but certainly the evaluation will help us to understand where are the points in which the legislation could be fine-tuned in the future. So it's really good that we can see this coming soon.
Okay, thank you, Alejandro. We do have two questions. So the first question is, would you say that the various interpretations of the directive are the result of its vagueness, or are monitoring agencies ill-equipped to understand the directive correctly? That is a good question. How should I put this? The directive, I personally don't think that the directive is vague, really, but during the negotiation process, I led the expert group supporting the member states and the Commission into writing the implementation acts and so on. And I think there was a broad consensus, and I agree on that we shouldn't be too prescriptive when it comes to, for example, the testing procedures and so on, because even if we do want harmonized standards and so on, there are quite some differences between different countries from the assistive technology provision and what you are frankly used to as a user. So a good website in Sweden doesn't necessarily equal a good website in Spain, because we have different traditions and the languages and history and culture and all sorts of things. So I think if we are too prescriptive on the super nitty-gritty details, that would not be beneficial for all countries. So I don't think the vagueness is a problem as such. Are the monitoring agencies ill-equipped? Yes, generally yes, I think they are, but not only them, but also the market. There is a big knowledge gap in the market. So the public sector bodies don't know enough of web accessibility to procure in a good way, but also the market players are not knowledgeable enough about accessibility. So everyone has a little piece of the responsibility here. And some of the monitoring agencies are doing a brilliant job, and I think all of them are doing the best they can, but some also have very small resources to actually do the monitoring. But I don't think the monitoring is the most important piece. The most important piece is that we actually get to improve accessibility. So the monitoring agencies is kind of my focus right now, because I try to understand how the enforcement is working and try to make recommendations around that. But the people, the boots on the ground, that is much more important, that the public sector bodies require accessibility in a clever way so that the market does respond to that, because I think that is kind of the circle, the good circle here that we want to achieve. What I think already that we will have in the report is that it would kind of benefit everyone if we had a more consistent way of reporting on the monitoring, because that I think is a bad vagueness, or it's a lack of, there's no template, there's no way. You should report and you should put some things in, but the reports are high and low and really different. So it's hard to kind of get an overview, and I don't think that is helpful for the member states either. So a little bit more order and structure in the reporting, I think, would be really beneficial. So I hope that that answered your question. And then we have from Jakob again, what happens next? What will the Commission do with the data from your assignment? And is there hope for a refined directive, which is more inclusive? Well, I cannot know for sure or promise what the Commission will do, but I mean, they spend money on this assignment, and I'm sure that they are interested in the result. And I do believe that they have a view on trying to make sure that they support the member states in a good way, and that they can, they want the directive to be successful, of course. So I do think that the results of this will slowly work itself into the bureaucracy, and then hopefully make improvements. If the whole directive becomes more refined and inclusive, I mean, there will be small steps, and we can't expect the directive to be covering everything, or having much higher requirements or something. It won't be those big, super big things that I don't think we can expect, but some refinements here and there, and a better support for some sectors or some member states. I do think the Commission will try to do improvements, but I'll just try to do as smart. We try to do the best of the recommendations, and then hope for the best, I guess. So let me introduce to you UPower, the Web Accessibility Directive, or UPower. This is a project that we have recently got funding for, and that we are really happy to start working on. And the background here is, of course, how the Web Accessibility Directive is kind of moving forward. So we have the monitoring from the monitoring bodies in each member state. And then we have the public sector bodies who are obliged to comply with the directive. They need to publish their accessibility statements. So it's kind of a self-declaration of their level of accessibility. And then we have the possibility for end users to send in, to provide feedback to the public sector body. And if that doesn't work out well, then they can also file formal complaints. So we have kind of from the top down monitoring, we have from the bottom up the feedbacks and complaints, and then in the middle we have the self-declaration or the accessibility statements. And I personally believe that this is a very clever setup for this directive to work in a good way. But if one of these parts doesn't really happen, then it's no balance in the system. So we need to make sure that the end users do provide feedback, and that feedback is taken care of in a good way. And that is what we are trying to do in the project UPower. So as we have seen, many users are still not aware of their rights when it comes to the Web Accessibility Directive, and the feedback mechanisms are also sometimes hard to find, or they are not even there, although they're mandatory. And if you find them, or when you find them, they're sometimes not that easy to use, because sometimes it's hard to understand how to provide the feedback and so on. So there are different kinds of problems here. And there's also the unknown unknown. So if the public sector body don't get any feedback, maybe they don't even know that there is an accessibility problem. At least that is what we hear from our clients. They said, I mean, we have a website and no one is complaining, so probably there's no problem. So that is an issue. And of course, it can't be the responsibility of the end user community to kind of support everyone on everything. But if we could make sure that end users at least sometimes provide feedback when they encounter problems and do that in a constructive way, then I think the website owners would also learn a lot from the end users. It's kind of free consulting, really. So it should be really, it has a great value here. And we also know that the website owners in the public sector bodies, they really struggle to interpret the accessibility problems. I mean, now I'm talking broadly, but many of them don't have the experience and the knowledge around accessibility, so that they try to follow the technical requirements or the standards, and that's fine, but they don't really connect that to the actual user needs. And that is what the users, of course, can provide with the feedback, explaining how the problems are seen from the end user perspective, and you know, how to mitigate that. So the website owners sometimes don't understand the problem, and sometimes they don't know how to solve the problems. And this is why we created the UPower project. So UPower is, of course, users power the Web Accessibility Directive, just as sometimes you can see that, you know, machines power knowledge and so on, but it's also an abbreviation of U. So you, the user, can also power the Web Accessibility Directive. And what we tried to do in this project, or what we are going to try to do, because the project starts on Tuesday, the 1st of February, is to understand the needs of the different user groups, and to see how can we support and understand their needs of what do they need to be able to provide constructive feedback. And we are then also going to support the users in training them and supporting them so that they understand how this whole system works and what is required for them. We hear from some users that they say, I don't know, it doesn't work, but I don't know if it's my fault or if it's the technology or if the website. It's hard to know, of course, as a user, but that shouldn't stop you from giving your feedback. So we are also going to train the website owners in how to handle the feedback and understand that, and how to behave more or less to understand how assistive technology use affects the user and so on. And we are going to provide guidelines on this after researching this, and create a toolkit to help all sides of this, all stakeholders to take care of the feedback in a more constructive way. So in the consortium of this Erasmus Plus project, we have the Technical University of Dortmund and the European Blind Union, and a Cypriotic vocational trainer organization called Synthesis, and then it's us in Funka. And it's a 2-year project that is funded by the European Commission under the Erasmus Plus program. And I know we have, I saw Mr. Ferretti from the European Blind Union. So if you would like to say something about why this is important from your perspective, and from the end users, what you would like to achieve with this project, apart from what I already presented. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Susanna. Well, I'm Romain Ferretti, project manager at the European Blind Union. I could see in the list of participants some known names. So in any case, hello, everybody. Yes, in the past, EBU lobbied for the adoption of the Web Accessibility Directive. So it was adopted in 2016, and it needs to be properly implemented also at national level. In an ideal world, websites would be accessible following the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Yet, we are not living in an ideal world, far from it over the past 2 years, especially. Pragmatically, so to achieve web accessibility or greater web accessibility, blind and partially sighted persons also need to proactively provide constructive and structured feedback when they navigate on inaccessible websites, when they fill in forms, etc. And this was covered before. So yes, EBU is happy to be part of UPower, a project which will devise a training program enabling them, visually impaired persons, to report on such accessibility issues. And we are all the more happy as the curriculum to be created will consider the different levels of ICT knowledge and web accessibility. By the way, I don't know if the French EDF member is here, but we will have a couple of events to organize in France, and we hope we can rely on the support from the member of EDF in France, the French Disability Council, to help us identify testers and participants in these events. I didn't have much to say, but I will conclude like this. In France, we have a saying. It's a proverbial phrase from an old novel which says, if you don't come to Lagardère, then Lagardère will come to you. So we are eager to come to web accessibility rather than waiting for it. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a very good ending. Thank you for this. So we will do events, of course, and we also need all of you to support us if you would like to be involved in this project. So EBU is one of the partners, but the European Disability Forum will also be partners in this. So we are focusing on blind and visually impaired, but we are of course covering all user groups in the project. So if you would like to support us on this or know more about the training, maybe do some help us with the surveys and interviews and so on, then please do reach out to research@funka.com, and we'll be happy to talk more to you about this project. And we really hope to get out with this information to all the corners of Europe, so that every end user knows his or her rights and have the ability to also act on it. So with that, I would like to leave the floor again to Alejandro to give us the latest news from EDF on the policy level. What do you have to share today, Alejandro?
Thank you, Susanna. Thank you. Well, we come to the, let's say, maybe the most boring part of the webinar after these exciting projects. I hope it is not that way, it's not that boring. But I will give you just an overview on the main policy files that EDF is following at the moment. I will divide it without entering into much detail in two blocks. So the disability specific policy files, and then the other policy files in which we try to mainstream digital accessibility, because this is also important for coherence of the legislation, because if we have the Web Directive or the Accessibility Act, but then we have other important directives which do not include any accessibility requirement, then we miss out in those areas. So let's start first with the disability specific legislations and activities that we are following. I mean, beyond accessibility, obviously, we also work on other social policies, human rights, gender equality, and so forth, but I will focus on the digital accessibility one. So in addition to the Web Accessibility Directive evaluation that we already discussed, we are certainly supporting our members, our national members, in the transposition of the European Accessibility Act, the other big piece of legislation concerning accessibility. And as you know, the scope of this legislation is very much focused on ICT, on digital accessibility as well. So we believe that with these two legislation in place, we will see an increase in the demand that of accessibility professionals as well in the public sector and in the private sector as well. So we will see. For the moment, many countries are late in transposing the Accessibility Act, as it is the case in many European legislation. Then on media accessibility, so those the Audiovisual Media Service Directive, meaning the accessibility that we can find in our TV channels and video on demand platforms such as Netflix or HBO, etc. This year, the Commission will publish the first implementation report. So we will see how countries have interpreted Article 7 on accessibility, which became mandatory in the last revision of this directive. This will be very interesting to see as well. Then we are also working in the telecoms and electronic communications rules. So for example, in the Commission decisions around the accessibility of the 112 emergency number, which is still not accessible for persons with disabilities. Then in the framework of the European Disability Strategy, you know, the Commission last year, they finally presented a renewed disability rights strategy for 2021 till 2030. And there we can find many important actions concerning accessibility. It's actually one of the main, one of the 8 objectives of the strategy. And we have other, as they call it, flagship initiatives, which are very important for the disability movement. Like, for example, the disability card, for example, so to really have a wide European-wide card in which your disability can be recognized across countries. So we have this mutual recognition of disability that can be very important to, you know, to access assistance in transport, for example, or any other support in cultural venues, etc. So we hope that this flagship initiative will be a reality, which at the moment is just a pilot project in 8 European countries. Another important flagship initiative that we will know more about this year is the Accessible EU Knowledge Center. This is one of the main activities or the main actions of the flagship initiatives of the disability strategy. And basically the Commission picked up one of our recommendations from EDF and our members to create a new European agency just focused on accessibility, as we have other agencies such as the Agency for Medicines and Disease Prevention. Those are really famous nowadays, unfortunately. But we see that countries such as the US, they have a federal agency for accessibility, the US Access Board, which actually does a really great job in really raising awareness, creating the standards and the technical specifications for accessibility, liaising with users and industry. But the Commission didn't go that far, unfortunately. So instead of proposing an agency, they are proposing a knowledge center, which we don't know yet what competencies and what activities they will undertake. But we certainly hope that this knowledge center will support the implementation of the Web Directive or the Accessibility Act or any other European legislation which relates to accessibility. And we hope that can be, you know, a point of contact between users and industry, accessibility professionals, so forth, and obviously public authorities and companies and the private sector to advance together on the implementation of accessibility in practice. Another important action in the disability strategy, even though this one is a bit hidden in the text, but it's there and I will not forget. I remembered because of the presentation of Susanna at the beginning of the body project, is about the evaluation of the assistive technology market. It's true what Susanna said, that persons with disabilities, we experience many barriers to access assistive technology. The provision delivery systems that we have at national level are very, very different from country to country. So we may have this, we certainly have the situation in which the same piece of assistive technology may be for free for certain people with disabilities in a given country. It may cost a lot of money in another one. It may be refunded partially in another one. The information is not shared. Depending on the type of assistive technology, you need certain certification in order for the state to refund, or the insurance in the case of the private systems to refund to the user. So there are many difficulties and complex situations when it comes to assistive technology that the Commission, according to the strategy, will examine in 2023. So this is something that is upcoming. And then obviously we will work on other priorities concerning disability rights, such as the reform of the proposal to reform the European electoral law, so meaning how to make the European elections more accessible, a new directive on combating violence against women, which we expect it includes the perspective of women and girls with disabilities. But beyond those, let's say, disability-specific policy issues, we are also working in ensuring that there is coherence and there is a persistent mainstreaming of accessibility in other digital files. And you know, the European Union is very proud of being a supranational organization that is leading the legislation on data protection and other tech issues. No, so we have important legislation being discussed at the moment concerning digital services, so the Digital Services Act and the Digital Markets Act. These are very complex pieces of legislation that try to regulate the big tech companies such as Google, Facebook, Amazon, and so forth. And what we are trying is to make sure that they will comply with the same accessibility requirements as those that are included in the Accessibility Act. And same goes for another very important priority for the EU, and I would say for the entire world at the moment, which is artificial intelligence. We know that artificial intelligence, and we've seen in this webinar today, can be very beneficial for persons with disabilities and can actually support our independent living, and in this case that we saw, the choosing an appropriate piece of assistive technology for you. But we also know that artificial intelligence may further discriminate persons with disabilities. And we've seen many cases in recruitment, in access to public services, and so forth. So there is this risk as well that AI may reinforces certain discrimination cases against persons with disabilities. We are trying to tackle that, and we are also trying to ensure that the applications, the systems, the artificial intelligence systems, will also need to comply with accessibility requirements, because it's not just a manner, which obviously of citizens and let's say people being affected by the artificial intelligence, but also the possibility for persons with disabilities to work in the tech sector. So we really need to mainstream accessibility, so the future jobs on this sector, on this domain, on artificial intelligence, on digital platform, etc., will also be an opportunity, a job opportunity for persons with disabilities. There are a couple of other legislation which we will follow. We'll keep an eye on them, because actually we were happily surprised that in the new regulation for a digital ID, for a digital identification, does include already a reference to the accessibility requirements of the Accessibility Act. This is really good. So we don't need to go again and say, hey, you forgot about this. It's already there. We just need to keep an eye on this legislation. So this kind of third-party contents that I was mentioning before, that certain public sector use for citizens to identify themselves, but we also have these issues in banking and in e-commerce, for example, that we need to identify ourselves. We need to make sure that those processes are accessible. And then another interesting proposal from the Commission is the proposal to have a universal charger for our mobile devices, which in principle, many people may think that is not related to persons with disabilities, but we believe that if we have a universal charger, it is a great opportunity for many people, and for people with intellectual disabilities, for example, for older people, and to have a really an easy to understand charger, and you don't need to always be, that happens to all of us, to be checking, okay, this cable fits or doesn't fit with this device and so forth. So it's, let's say, a sustainability or a proposal aiming at, you know, this green transition and so forth, and to avoid waste and try to be more smart in our use of tech. But we also see it as an opportunity to make, if we have a universal charger, a one that is more accessible and easy to use, and avoid complications for not only for us, for persons with disabilities, but for all users. So these are, in a very short, some of the legislation that we are following, but there are way more. So if you have any questions about any of these, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandro. That was 10 minutes of enormous amount of good information, but I would also like to encourage anyone who is interested in reading the disability strategy, because I think it's rather well written and it's actually understandable. Not all bureaucratic documents from the Commission is understandable, but the disability strategy, I think, is kind of rather easy to grasp, and the more people who knows about it, the more can do exactly what Alejandro says. Don't forget that you promised this, and we can pick out some sentences and remind them to actually act on it.
Yep.
So thank you very much. We have two questions before we wrap up. So one question is there any study on authorities on accessibility in EU member states? Is there any good examples like in the US or similar?
We are looking into it. We just know that in Poland, for example, there is a similar agency, and also in Spain there is an entity, but I'm not sure if it is public or shared with DPOs as well in Spain. So there are a couple of examples, but the strongest one that we found so far is in the US. But this is something that we are at the moment researching to prepare our position about the Accessible EU Center.
Thank you. And the last question for today that we can manage to respond to is there any way to enforce a certain level of quality for assistive technology? I've noticed many manufacturers using lower quality or outdated hardware and software compared to their non-accessibility focused counterparts, for example, phones for the blind and similar devices. So what do you say, Alejandro?
Yeah, it's a tricky question, and it's true that we've been listening to this complaint. On the one hand, some people may say, okay, we may have like lower cost assistive technology that are easier to manufacture and to provide to user, but it's true that in certain cases the quality may be also compromised. But we need to bear in mind that there are different levels of assistive technology. We may have a low cost assistive technology, which is just a magnified glass, and we may have a more complex high-tech assistive technology, and beyond that we have medical device or medical kind of assistive technology, such as cochlear implants and so forth. So that's why member states, they have their certification schemes, and what we need to know, to kind of encourage the Commission to do, is to have a common framework. At least we have a clear understanding across member states, what is this kind of assistive technology, what are the quality assurance for it, and then on the basis of that, it will be useful for users to access a wider, an internal market, the European internal market of assistive technology, which doesn't exist at the moment, and also for the providers of assistive technologies to be able to sell their products not only in one country by one country. So I need to get certified in Sweden, then go to Denmark, then go to Germany and so forth. So in a way that they can also have a common understanding and a common certification that can facilitate this market. And by doing this, we will also be ensuring that, okay, this type of assistive technologies will have this level of quality. This is our hope, but we will need to see the evaluation of the market, of assistive technology market, that the Commission planned in the strategy. I hope this answers. I'm sorry, I cannot go beyond that.
No, but I agree with you. And thank you, Alejandro. I think that was a very good and timely response as well. So thank you very much, Alejandro, for being with us today. We love to do these updates together with you. So stay tuned for the next one. We will do it just before the summer, I think, or hope. And thank you also to my colleagues, Lisa and John, who was supporting me today, and Eva, who hasn't been on camera because she has her beautiful little son running around and playing in the background. I happen to know that, so I had the chance to say hello to him before, but and also Roman Ferretti from the European Blind Union, who could only be with us for a short period of time. So thank you, everyone, and also for you participating. Of course, we will put the recording in our YouTube channel, so you can find it afterwards. And if you would like to see the slides, we will also share them with you. My colleague Eva will make sure that you get the information and all the links that you may need. And again, please do reach out if you want to speak to us, or to EDF, of course, about anything, or if there's any projects or ideas that you want to share with us. And a special thank you, as always, to our lovely interpreters, Razak, Elizabeth, and Heather. Thank you. You are doing a wonderful job, as always. I know I speak too fast, but you're always supporting us. It's fantastic. So thank you, everyone. Go out and enjoy your afternoon or morning if you are in the Caribbean. And yeah, stay tuned and keep up the good work. Let's make sure we get a more inclusive world tomorrow than we have today. Thank you, everyone.